Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless!
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Self-Helpless podcast. I'm Kelsey Cook.
I'm Delaney Fisher.
And today we have such a fantastic guest on, you guys. We have on Aparna Nancherla, and she did an incredible interview with us all about her new book called Unreliable Narrator.
Yes.
So, yeah, we just loved talking to her so much. If you don't know Aparna, she is such an established comedian, actor, and writer. Her writing has appeared on Late Night with Seth Meyers, Broad City, Ghostbusters. She has been featured on Two Dope Queens, Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Conan. And she can currently be seen in Peacock's Lopez vs. Lopez and the latest season of HBO Max's Search Party and Netflix's Space Force. I mean,
Comedy Central, all the things.
Netflix.
Yes.
I mean, she is everywhere. Like, it's so amazing how just how incredible her career is. So, and then her book of personal essays called Unreliable Narrator comes out tomorrow, September 19th. So, yeah, it is a hilarious and introspective collection of essays by Aparna exploring her life as a shy comedian battling depression, anxiety, and self-doubt. And she opened up to us about all of those things and more in our interview. So, we hope you guys enjoy the interview with her. Before we get into it, just a few things to plug. So this is coming out on September 18th. So I am going to be in Louisville, Kentucky at the end of this month, September 28th through the 30th. Then in October, I will be in Spokane and Cleveland. In November, I will be in Grand Rapids, DC, Nashville, Huntsville, and Atlanta. And then in December, I will be in Boston and Tampa. So if you are in any of those cities or nearby, go to kelseycook.com, get a tour date ticket. Pretty please.
Yes. And you can tune into my other podcast, Career Crush, at delaneyfisher.com. It's currently a private show, but it's completely free. And we just talk about how to find the career path that's going to make you feel, the most happy, fulfilled, purposeful, all that good stuff. What I'm loving right now about the people I'm interviewing is so many of these people have never, ever done a podcast before. So they are actually exclusive interviews. Like, they're not talking about their career or their experiences anywhere else. They're not hitting the podcast circuit. They're just like, I live on a boat and this is my life, And I'm just really, really enjoying hearing everybody's perspectives on what makes them happy, whether it's a really kind of out there career path or something more conventional, but they're doing something on the side that makes them really, feel good. So head on over to delaneyfisher.com if you want to tune in and be a part of that community over there. Really fun.
That's so cool. I love that you're doing that.
Thank you. I love it. It's so much. I just want to do it. I still kind of all I want to do is like podcast, this podcast and that podcast. Yeah. And I'm hoping I can just like do that for a while.
Yeah.
And not really have to worry about other things.
Yeah. It sounds like your other podcast, a lot of the concept is like finding happiness, which is it's really cool. Mm-hmm.
And it's like the career part is like a tool for that, but it's also like, what you do in your outside of your job. But it's fun.
Well, I'm very happy for you. And
thanks. Right back at you, babe.
Thank you. Okay. Without further ado, here is our interview with Aparna.
Aparna, thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes. So before we get into all the juice and imposter syndrome and all that good stuff, do you have a favorite or least favorite quote?
Okay, so I was told to bring a favorite or least favorite quote, and I would consider myself what you might call a quote fiend. I love a good quote.
Same.
I think
You're
we're
in the
all
right
on the
place.
same page. Okay,
Yes.
So I was kind of stressed to think of my favorite quote. So I brought with you my most recent favorite quote.
I love it.
Okay, great. So this comes from Hanif Abdurraqib, who's like a poet, amazing writer based out of Ohio. And I was reading an interview with him and this is the quote. He says, "My superpower is that I mind my own business. And I actually think that helps my productivity more than anything." And yeah, and I sort of took it to mean, because I kind of course, was like, what do I think that means to me? And I think for me, it was kind of like not worrying about what other people are doing, kind of just looking, eyes on your own paper. But just the way he put it felt a lot more eloquent than I had seen it before.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, like not the comparison trap, right? Of they're doing this and I'm not as good as this, or what am I doing? Yeah, that's such a good one. We have done full episodes on quotes that we love, so
yes,
I'm glad that it makes sense. It was hard for you to pick your favorite because that's how I feel too.
Yeah. My only New Year's resolution, I told myself just make one so you can try to actually stick to it this time, is just to care less what people think of me. Not even to like not care, because I know for me that's probably asking too much, but just to care less what people think of me. And I love how your quote talks about that it feels like he's more productive that way, because I do think if you can just put it aside a little bit, caring what people think of you, you do get more done.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like minding one's own business, I feel like there's sort of a wide interpretation of what that could mean. Because it's also like we're not worrying about what other people are doing, not worrying what other people are thinking about you or saying about you. Yeah, it works. Yeah,
so good. Awesome. So congrats on your book, by the way. That's very exciting. So very cool. Imposter syndrome is a big theme in the book. I would love to know, what is like your first memory of experiencing imposter syndrome, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of a memory from my childhood where I didn't feel maybe like I didn't fit in, or I somehow like didn't get the memo that everyone else got, or just like I constantly feel like I've always approached the world as though I'm like catching up to everyone else. Like when you are out sick from school and then you come back and you're like, wait, what are we doing? Like what's this unit, or like what are people wearing now? Like I always feel like I've been trying to like figure it out after everyone else did. So I think, I don't even know if I have like a one specific memory, but just like several memories of like, I don't know, like I went to a private school in elementary school, and I remember like all the cool girls, like we would usually wear uniforms, and then occasionally we would get like free dress day where you got to wear whatever you wanted. And then that would be like a whole stressful thing of deciding what you were going to wear that day. But then I remember like all the cool girls coordinated their outfits, and I was just like, how did they know to even, operate this way? It's so advanced. Yeah.
That is so fascinating to me, because I remember being a kid, I felt like I didn't really have imposter syndrome. And then it became unbearable as an adult.
Yeah.
It's almost like I felt like things as a kid felt more measurable to me in a way, where it's like, if I won an award for something, it was because I really did get the best grades on that thing, or I hit the most home runs. It was like this measurable thing.
Yes.
And then I feel like as I got older, when things felt more arbitrary or less measurable, it was like, I had a really hard time with that. And I felt like I didn't deserve things. I felt guilty, all of that stuff. So thank you for sharing that. That's such an interesting perspective that you kind of felt that way.
I mean, it's in writing the book, I actually talked to, a couple of friends. Like I just sent out like an informal survey of just like how it had imposter syndrome has shown up in their life. And it did feel like that's pretty common, that like when it first came up for people was like early on in their careers, where they feel like they haven't quite like, figured out what they're doing, or like have enough experience to back themselves up. So I think that is like, did seem to be the most frequent place, like early adulthood, when it first like really comes up strong.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
So this is your first book, correct?
Yes.
I'm curious, what was one of the biggest challenges for you just in writing it? Did you find that you were feeling imposter syndrome even in creating it, or like, do you have an easy time focusing? We talk a lot on the show about stuff with ADHD and any ways that we can find to tap into focus if we're having a hard time. Did you struggle with stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I so relate to people with ADHD, and I'm like, I feel like I have it, but I don't think I have it. I think I have anxiety induced like lack of focus, where it's just like, it's all like brought to you by anxiety. So
brought to you by sponsored by anxiety.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
So I'm a huge procrastinator, and like it is like exactly what you're saying, Kelsey, where it's like writing a book about self-doubt. You're just like, what have I done? Like I've picked the topic that's like the most impossible to be like, okay, so I'm just going to bring up every insecurity I've ever had and then be like, and put it on paper. That's so easy. Yeah. So everyone told me like writing a book is going to be really hard, but I think I just like added a level of difficulty on myself by being like, okay, and I'm gonna write, because I was sort of like, okay, I'm gonna write this book about imposter syndrome, and then it will be cured because I'll have figured it out by the end. And of course, that's like never what happens when you do anything creative. You know, you're just like, oh, this is totally different from how I imagined in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your book also talks about your love-hate relationship with stand-up comedy. And here on Self-Helpless, we are kind of a combination of those two things because when we started the show 6 years ago, Delaney and I both did stand-up. And then how many years ago was it, Del, that you stepped away?
I don't know. I feel like it's 5, almost or over 5 years now. I can't remember.
Yeah. So Delaney stepped away from it, and it's like now my, full-time job and everything like that. But what has your experience been with stand-up, and what are the love-hate aspects?
Yeah, so let's see. I am coming off a pretty long break. Like I guess I started stand up in like 2006, like really pursuing it regularly. And so, I've been doing it for over a decade. And then when I was writing this book, I just realized I couldn't like write this book and do stand up at the same time. Like there was something about like mining all this personal information and like feeling very raw all the time, and like obviously when you're writing a book, you don't have that instant gratification you have with stand up where you're like, here's my idea and now I immediately know how these people feel about it. So I think it was like too confusing for my brain to like be going on stage in this sort of raw like state of mind, and then having a weird set and then not like taking it too personally, like more so than I probably would have before. So I was like, I'm just going to step away, focus on one thing at one time. And weirdly, like taking a break from stand-up honestly feels like it was probably the best thing I've done as a stand-up, like for myself, because it just felt like it was a way to reset my brain and like reset like why I do it in the first place and like what I get out of it. Like the easiest way to really get that perspective was to step away from it. And that was so hard for me because I think you guys probably know, like when you're a stand-up, you like eat, drink, breathe, sleep, stand up. And it's like really hard to kind of see outside of that tunnel vision sometimes and realize you're like a full person outside of comedy.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of shame in the stand-up comedy business too, that if you aren't eating, sleeping, drinking stand-up, that you're not cut out for it or you're not working hard enough. And I find that when I'm in that mode of like, it's the only thing I'm doing, I'm not as creative. Like I have to go live to have experiences to write about, but there is a lot of shame in it. I'm always comparing myself to other people's like volume of content they're creating.
So I think it's only been like later, like as I've gotten older, that I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like if I do stand up and my way of doing it or like my model of how it shows up in my life doesn't match up with like, like this guy next to me or this woman or this person, like it's supposed to be an art form that, brings in like different sorts of thoughts and experiences. So like, why should your way of doing it have to look like everyone else's?
I felt so much shame and I just felt so bad when I left because I felt like that lifestyle just didn't make me happy. Like I want to be able to come home to the same bed every night. And I don't like being out at night. I don't really like traveling. But I love comedy and so many aspects of it. But I almost felt like, oh, I just can't hack it, like that's what it felt like. Do you like the touring lifestyle? Does that excite you? Does that feel sustainable for you? Or have you what's your relationship with that specifically?
I am not built for the road. Like I will go out. I will go out in like concentrated amounts. Like I'm doing some tour dates around this book. And, my agent was just like, you're gone for a week and then I'll get you right back in your little home, like just like, so I think I'm just like not built for that sort of I don't know, when you're younger, there is sort of this novelty to it. You're like, oh my God, I'm in a hotel room. Like I'm here to I'm here in like Portland or whatever, and people are going to pay to see me. But then, yeah, as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I think I like my routine, and I I'm like a cat. Like I'm very attached to my sense of place. So, so I think I'm like trying to figure out a way to do stand up that kind of works with those needs. And I've been lucky in that I've had like opportunities in like voiceover or like other stuff where I don't have to like solely rely on it for my whole income, because I know sometimes it's not a choice necessarily. You're just like trying to pay rent.
Right.
Yeah. And was that intentional for you? Like when you felt like, okay, stand up doesn't feel sustainable, that lifestyle, like all the time. Did you try to get into this other scope of stuff under the comedy umbrella, or did they kind of come up organically?
I would say a combination of both. I mean, I think that's the thing with like acting and writing. Like there is so much, and even stand up, like you can be doing all the things and like showing up and being diligent and have your head in the game. And it's still like sometimes comes down to luck and timing. And I feel like I've, been lucky to get, I got a voiceover job on like BoJack Horseman early on, and I feel like that ended up being like a show that was on a lot of people's radar. So then that kind of helped open up other voiceover opportunities. So I think there is things with like acting and stand-up opportunities and writing where it feels, I feel like when you're on the outside of it or before you've gotten your first big break, it just seems so impossible. And it seems like the people who are doing well just like knew, it's like that same feeling of when I was in elementary school, like they just somehow knew the steps to take to get where they are. But I think it is important to remember there is still like luck involved and like things that are a little bit outside our control. And it's like, okay to not always be like, well, if I had just worked harder, I would be here. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Were there any essays in your book that you were hesitant to include or almost didn't include?
Yeah, I like there's stuff around sexuality. Like I don't really talk a lot about, yeah, like my sex life or like romantic stuff on stage. So I think there was stuff just around how, I'm not like a super sexual person, and it does feel like a kind of realm of like, asexuality is like a spectrum as well. And sometimes just like my ambivalence towards sex, like I don't know like where the room is in the conversation for that, because I feel like especially as a woman sometimes that gets like put into like maybe you haven't experienced real pleasure, versus like
Sure.
that's like actually just how you're built or your
Yeah.
preference. Yeah.
Was there anything that was very helpful for the book writing process? Like was there a time where you're like, I really feel like I'm in the flow state, and whatever mindset you were able to get into helped bring this out of you, or any other tools that may have helped?
Yeah, I'm someone who has to kind of trick myself into working because I have such a love-hate relationship with work where I'm like, I like really like structure, but then if you like are like, okay, show up here at 8 a.m., I'm like, who are you? Like, don't tell me what to do. Like it's like, what do I want? What do I actually want here? But
Yeah.
I would have to do things where I'd be like, okay, like just sit down and just like open up the document and just like look over your stuff. You don't even need to like, you don't have to commit to a certain amount of time. And it's just like just starting is so big for me. It's just like that hurdle between being like, oh, I should work on this versus actually working on it. For some reason, it just feels like impossible every time. So I would just be like different ways of getting myself to just like open it up and start.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Pomodoro Technique?
I have, but I've never tried it. I guess I've heard of it, but I haven't like explored it more than that.
That's the only thing in the past year that I've found to be a consistent way to trick myself into starting. Because I agree, it's the same for me. It's like just once I can start, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just getting there. And yeah, I would be curious how you feel about it if you try it. It's just starting that timer for 25 minutes. There's something about seeing a clock going down that just works in some competitive way in my mind. I don't know. I don't know why, but I just feel like, oh shit, I have to go now. I don't know.
No, that's true, because I do feel like sometimes before a stand-up show, I'll be in that sort of like panic state of where you're a little bit like, okay, what am I doing? What do I want to try and stuff? And I'll find myself like coming up with ideas in that frame of mind. So I'm always like, how can I, recreate this sense of urgency when I don't have a show?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
almost like you have to make a part of your brain kind of dumb for a second
yeah,
to like trick
yeah.
it into thinking that this is a significant countdown, even though it's
Yes,
not, but it
yes,
just,
yes.
I don't know, it taps into a weird thing.
Totally. And
Yeah.
I also, because I was listening to a recent episode you guys did on sleep, and I am so sleep sensitive. Like I know I'm a totally different person, like without enough sleep versus enough sleep. So I'm always like working to have a more consistent sleep pattern. But then I do notice sometimes, on a day when you have a really early flight or something and your sleep is just super messed up, I will notice like my brain kind of thinks in a more interesting way if I'm super sleep deprived. And then I'm like, this isn't good. Like, wait, I could be like having way better ideas if I just have a much more unhealthy life.
I agree though. There are like
Yeah.
weird hours of the night where it's like
Yes.
you happen to
Yeah.
be up at 3 a.m. for some reason and you're like, wow, I cannot turn my brain off right now, but this is also
Yeah.
not sustainable.
Yeah. It's almost like a version of being on a drug or something.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
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 The high thoughts when you're not high. Those are my
Yeah.
favorite. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes I remember though that I am high. I'm like, oh, I forgot I did that.
I did take that edible.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad the Pomodoro method worked. I wish it worked better for me because I like when I hear the alarm, I'm just like, fuck you. I know that's not a real deadline or real alarm. So I'm
Yes.
like, God damn it. I wish.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does work.
Yeah.
When did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in comedy, and how did the people around you react to that?
I mean, I was interested in comedy, I think, starting in high school in terms of being like, oh, this is like actually something you can pursue. But I'm sort of the generation that grew up absorbing comedy pre-YouTube and like pre the internet. So it wasn't quite as like widely understood that like anyone can do this, and like it's like all you have to do is pick up your phone and like record a video or something. But I think I just something about it appealed to me, and I felt like I could be funny just like around friends, but I was never like the class clown or anything. So it was more like one of those back burner dreams where I was like, okay, this is something I like, but I don't know like what my entry point would be. And then I just tried an open mic. Like I still am sort of like, how did I do that? Looking back on it, but I tried an open mic. Like a friend and I were home from college for the summer, and we were like, let's just try to go up one time, like before we go back to school. And we both like agreed to do it. And I remember my first time was like my birthday. So I was like, I mind that, where I was just like, it's my birthday, please laugh, like whatever,
Yeah.
whatever I can do to like garner sympathy out of these people. And it went well enough that I think I was like, oh, wow. Like I had not even considered the fact that I might like want to do it again.
Yeah.
But I didn't pursue it regularly until after college. Yeah, because I think I was still just like, I can't believe this is something I could do like full time. It just seemed so like one of those like imagined fairy tale careers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a funny hack to starting stand up is like start on your birthday.
Yeah.
And like people will probably be because I think that's half the battle is if the first time if it goes well enough to just make you feel that you
Totally.
want to try it again, it's huge. That first time is, I think, so important.
It is, because then it's like, you might have a year where it's like you're pretty bad the whole
Oh
first year.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So,
yeah.
so you're right. You just
Good
need
one.
that like first hit. Yeah.
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 Wow.
Or you can keep telling people it's your first time, the first like
Oh,
20 times, and
Oh
then like,
yeah,
oh,
that's a
good
good
job. So
ew.
proud of you.
that is a good
I
hack.
may have done that a few times.
No, you gotta figure out whatever methods.
Oh my God. So in your book, you talk about that you have named your depression Brenda, and which is so fucking funny. Can you talk about Brenda and your experience with her and how she shows up in your life?
Yeah, so interestingly, like I was first diagnosed with depression like in college, and I was also struggling with like an eating disorder at the time. And I think sometimes like this happens for people where like the eating disorder or whatever the other dysfunctional behavior you have is just kind of a mask for depression or like something else you're going through. And that was sort of the case for me. Like the eating habits were kind of a way of avoiding the depression. And so I had to take time off from school and sort of work on that. And that was actually when I first, I think, considered that I could try stand up to begin with, because I went on antidepressants for the first time. And I don't know, there's this like honeymoon period when you're first on antidepressants where it is this weird, it's almost like getting glasses when you have, not been able to see like perfectly clearly, where you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you could like experience life in this register, like, like everything looks brighter, people seem nicer. And I think that honestly, that little boost is probably what first gave me the confidence to even try stand up, because I was so like suddenly open to like what my life could be in a way that I hadn't been for so long. And I had been in such a rut and so stuck. So I think weirdly, like I could thank my depression for like leading me to stand up. But I think it's also like having a depressive brain that kind of can make it really hard sometimes as a chosen path.
When did you know that you needed to seek help for that? Or like, when did you know that's okay, it's time for, to see somebody or antidepressants, or was there anything that kind of happened leading up to that?
Yeah, I mean, I was like struggling with restrictive eating and like anorexic behavior. And I think it got to a point where I was like trying to address it at school, but it just wasn't working. So I had to, take time off. And I went to like, an outpatient treatment center. And that was where like, they pair you with a therapist and a psychiatrist. And that's where I sort of was able to put a name to what was going on. But it did feel like there were other people at the treatment center who were like a lot more resistant to being there. And I do feel like maybe I was different in the sense that I like knew something was wrong and I wanted to address it. And I wasn't like, the way I'm doing it is working. And I'm like, everything's fine. Like I was like, I wanted to like live a different way than I was. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Can you share your thoughts on the concept of making art about nothing?
Yeah, I think, I started comedy in DC, and I feel like it's a pretty good city to start comedy in that it's a good scene. There's a good amount of stage time, but you're kind of under the radar as opposed to like a more industry city like New York or LA or so I think it's like a good place to find your feet and figure out your voice. But I was like, when I started, there weren't that many other women of color. It was still like primarily straight dudes and a lot of, white men. And I think I noticed that their comedy would be sort of about just like day-to-day observations and stuff. But it felt like if you were a certain race or you had like sort of one specific identity that made you stick out, people would kind of expect you to talk about that or like address it in some way, or that would be kind of your whole angle on everything. And I never really approached comedy that way, not intentionally, but I just like, I'm a very like introverted person. And I always like the stuff that's going on in my head is very not much about my outer identity. So I think I would just talk about that. And people would always be like, oh, that's so refreshing. Like you're a woman of color, but you like don't really rely on that. And so I think it made me have a weird relationship to like wanting to talk about, being a woman or being a woman of color, where I was like, is that bad then to like bring it up at all? Like it sort of made me feel like I was being praised for not talking about that stuff. But then I was like, but is that am I like undermining myself by not mentioning it at all? So I feel like I had to kind of come to my own understanding of like, no, it's fine to talk about like whatever you want to talk about. And it's like other people putting on you what that means or what that doesn't mean. Again, it's like none of my business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I am overwhelmed with ideas for things every single day, whether it's jokes, TV show ideas, books, podcast, whatever, overwhelmed. Do you feel that way? Like, is there a certain way that you organize and like prioritize and implement your creative ideas or projects in your life?
I wish there was.
Please, I'm asking for a friend, and that friend is me.
I'm like, you guys specialize in talking to people who seem to know what they're doing. Maybe you could help me because I don't. I have several like abandoned Google Docs with just like one sentence. And I'm just like, what did this mean? Just like a weird communication from my past self. But
Yeah.
I yeah,
Yeah.
it's constantly like a battle of like what do I prioritize? My new thing is just being like, okay, right now you can only focus on like two things. What are those two things going to be? Because otherwise it's just like, yeah, like I work on something for 5 minutes and then I forget about it completely. So I like for me now it's kind of because I am a perfectionist, so it's kind of just being like you can only handle so much at once. Like some people are multitasking geniuses, but I need like one task given to me and like just finish this and then you can move on to your next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally
Yeah.
makes sense. I resonate with that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, same. This is a lot of perfectionism that we've been
Yeah.
battling over the years on the podcast, and
Yes.
Yeah.
the tough one. Uh, are there a couple like main takeaways that you hope people have from reading your book?
Yeah. I think for me it's just airing a lot of the feelings that you guys talk about on your podcast that are like messier, uglier, like, you know, jealousy or shame or like comparing or perfectionism, where it is kind of messy and it's not always like, you know, like I feel like on social media there is this whole, I feel like the conversation with like mental health has been really opened up and a lot of these things have been really opened up, but I still feel like engaging with it online and like reading a meme that really resonates with you or something is still not the same as like actually talking to your friend that like maybe brings up some insecurity you have. Like those conversations are a lot less clean and like you both might
Yeah.
walk away feeling a little weird. And I think I just, yeah, I guess in the book I was kind of trying to capture just like how messy real life is and how it isn't just like you name it and now you know it and now you move on and yeah, go get it, girl boss. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
sort of an ongoing negotiating of yourself and like, you know, two steps forward, three steps back. Like it never fully ends.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Has there been any points in your career where you kind of felt like hopeless, whether it was like work felt inconsistent or there was low revenue months, so you felt like this is never going to be my reality of being able to do this stuff full time or just anything like that? And how did you like care for yourself and help yourself out of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think with the low periods, it really is like trying to for me it's like trying to broaden the world outside of again if it's like the insecurity is particularly around career or relationship like just trying to remember the world is bigger than that one thing and like you know either whether that's relationships outside of work or I mean I've found as I've gotten older like really it is like spending time with people you love is ultimately just the best out of everything so I think just remembering those things like the small things are kind of what keeps the big picture like in perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a
And
good one.
and and those low periods are like they are going to come and especially like for me with like depression anxiety like there are just times like I mean I have like especially worse anxiety and depression before my period and so I know like no matter what every month like a certain week is gonna suck and just like remembering that that's like just gonna be that week and like what knowing that how am I gonna like deal with it or am I just gonna be kinder to myself while that's happening rather than being like why do you have the worst brain yeah
Yes.
yeah yeah
Yeah. Do you, speaking of that sort of thing, do you ever feel like you have PMDD or have you been seeing
yeah I
stuff?
mean I that is what yeah that
Okay.
is what I struggle with yeah
Okay. It feels so hard to know because when you have PM, let's just say it's regular PMS, those feelings do like they're noticeable. And so I've always had trouble differentiating between what is PMS and what is PMDD when you can't
yeah
have somebody else's experience, like you only know your own. I feel like it's hard
that's
to
yeah
quantify between like you and a friend if you're just talking about it, how anxious somebody feels or how depressed somebody feels.
Yeah, no, that's so true because it is like such a I don't know, it can be such a gray area of like when does it cross the line into this other thing. And
Yeah.
for me, I just found like as I got a little older, I would just notice like my mood would get like significantly worse like in the 10 days leading up to my period, or like my ability to concentrate, or like just my irritability would like there would be like a distinct shift in like
Yeah.
how I was doing before. Because I know what you mean. It's like that mood stuff can be like all over the place all the
Yeah.
time, where it's just like a situational thing, or so sometimes it can be hard to chart, but it did feel like a big enough distinction for me.
Yeah. It's goddamn hormones. Why is
It's
so
fucked up.
hard?
So unfair.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know. We could probably do an entire other episode with you on that stuff, because that's been a big topic with me the past year. It's just hormone, IUD, those sort of things. It's just like crazy how much it can really impact you. Like that, if it is a large chunk of the month, it's like, goddamn, you feel like the second you're done with it, it's right back to it again.
Yeah. And that's like another one of those things too, where there's like, not that we aren't able to have those conversations, but sometimes I do feel shame where I'm like, people are like, oh, they hate being told like as women, like we're so emotional, we're so irrational. And I'm like, sometimes I do feel like I don't like, I feel like someone else is controlling my body and my mind, and I cannot explain my behavior. And I'm sorry, but that like, I don't trust myself either. So I don't know what you want to do with that information.
It's so hard. It's like hard to feel grounded in your own body when it's literally changing all the time. Like every single month it goes through this variety of shit, and you're somehow trying to feel centered on a daily basis. Like what the fuck? It's just like an uphill battle always.
I know.
I am dying to know about your perspective, just because you've mentioned, anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome. How do you feel about the idea or concept of fame? Does it freak you out? Does it excite you? Do you feel neutral about it, just being in this industry of entertainment?
Yeah, surprise, surprise, another thing I have a love-hate relationship with. Because I think, a lot of us get into these creative professions, or like, especially stand-up, there is a part of like, you feel seen when people like laugh at your jokes or like connect with you. And so I think that is what is gratifying about it to me, is like being able to like translate the inside of my head to other people and have them like understand and relate to it. But then I also, I'm kind of a shy person and introverted. So sometimes like engaging with those same people after the show is like, no, I can't, like, I just put me like back in my cave or whatever. Like it feels like I want like the best of both. But I don't want to like deal with anything in between. But yeah, I constantly struggle with like wanting attention, and then when I get it, just being like, oh, this is not what I wanted though. Like this is because when people's eyes are on you, not everyone's gonna like you, not everyone's gonna like have things to say that you want to hear. So I think it's like, again, I am trying to espouse the quote I said earlier, where I really like, I don't read comments, I don't read like reviews. Like I'm just like, maybe that makes me like weak-willed or something, but it just my brain will like take a little thing and just like run with it. So I'm like, it's better I just don't know.
I feel the same completely.
I feel like I had a mentality for a while that I needed to force myself to read comments because it was going to give me a thicker skin, and then it would make things easier going forward. And I've just learned for myself that it's like, there is nothing that is ever going to make me used to somebody saying something mean online. Like it will always hurt my feelings. It will. I just think I will always feel sensitive to that. And I'm not sure that inundating myself with every comment on the internet is the right way to go.
And it's also just remembering that, like, I don't know, even when I have a judgmental thought about someone else, it is like, what they say, it's like sometimes that's a reflection of some insecurity you're feeling about yourself. So then it's like all these people online, like who even knows what their intentions are with writing this thing, and you're only getting like one little sliver of information about where it's coming from, who's saying it. It just it's not fair to like then just be like, okay, you're right, I do have a weird voice or whatever it is, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just listening to another podcast where a comedian had deleted, or he had hired somebody to do his social media, so he doesn't see it anymore. And that I believe he had a meeting with, was it with Instagram? And I'm probably butchering this, but that the science behind why social media is bad for you isn't necessarily because you're seeing the negative comments. There's something very detrimental about seeing the positive comments, because it's
Yeah.
giving you that chemical rush that is also not normal to be feeling that all
Yeah.
the time, and then you start to get used to wanting that all the time. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting to be like, oh yeah, it's not even the bad ones that are always going
All
to
of
put you
it.
in a weird
Yeah.
mood.
Yeah, and I've like been pretty conscious with myself about stepping away from checking it. Like I'll post now even less than I used to, but I won't like scroll anymore. I like won't really look at other people's things. And you know, there are downfalls to that. You feel like you're out of the loop sometimes. You don't know like what is going on. You have to hear it like third party from someone else. But it is like, I don't know, it just feels like it has cleared up a lot of just noise in my brain that was hard for me to be able to like comb through without, yeah, losing focus
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a little over 2 years ago now, I deleted all my like permanently
Oh,
deleted
got
all
it.
my social media, and it helped me mentally so much, but
Yeah,
it's still a gray area. There's still a
for
little
sure.
FOMO and weirdness
Yeah,
around it. And it's like
yeah.
just nothing is all good or all bad. It's all just right smack dab in the middle. And it's like, I love stand up. I deleted my social media. I made myself way, way less visible. And that didn't feel good either. So it's like this for me, it's like constantly trying to figure out like, okay, how do I be seen enough to do the things that I like to do for my career, but not so out there that I feel like I'm inundated with all these different opinions and, all different angles. So it's just like a constant struggle, I feel like. Is there anything that you wish you would have known earlier about, I don't know, like if you could go back in time and tell yourself when you were first starting in this like creative career path or unconventional career path, like what do you wish you would have known earlier?
Mm, yeah, that's a good question. I think probably there is no like, I mean, it's always easier to say this on the other side of it, but really like no nothing you get or achieve is going to like, solve everything for you or
Oh,
like
that's
fix
such a good
everything.
one.
But
Yeah,
like
that's such a good
Yes.
one.
but I understand that it's like I remember being on the other side of it and it's like, well, easy for you to say, like you're not,
Yeah.
trying to like figure everything out. But it just like, yeah, I feel like some of my lowest points weirdly have been like when I was, on paper doing the best or like killing it like career wise, where it's just like, I think the fact that everyone's like, oh my God, you got so much going on and you don't feel different inside is such a like alienating feeling where you're like, but I don't feel better, where you're just like, wait, am I just like, is success like not for me? Like, do I just have to keep like seeking forever? But I think it's just remembering that that's like one layer of your life and it's not like always getting to the core of like what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Oh, well said. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that is so well
Yeah.
put. Especially because in this business, if you are not doing it full time, a lot of the time it means you're working a job you don't want to be working.
Yeah.
And there's such desperation in those early years when you're pursuing
Yes.
an unconventional career where you just want so badly for there to be one thing that really will change your life. And
Yeah.
at least in stand up, it's just not like that anymore. It's not, you don't do the
Right.
Tonight Show once and then get a sitcom.
Right.
It is so much more. There are a million doors that you have to walk through first.
Yeah, and just remembering that like once your dream becomes like your reality or whatever, like you're still a human, you're still going to have bad days, you're still going to have days where you're like, oh, like fuck this, like I don't want
Yeah.
to be here or whatever. And remembering that that's like normal and it's like okay if not every day you're like, I'm just so grateful for all of this and I'm the luckiest girl in the world, like it's okay. You're still a
Yeah.
person in the world and the world is hard. Life is can be a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still work.
Yeah, it's still work.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So, like, let's say that you got a phone call tomorrow and it was the biggest opportunity of your career to date, whatever that means for you. And you felt the imposter syndrome kicking in really quickly. What would you do for yourself? Are there certain exercises or go-to things that would help you kind of show up as comfortably as possible for that opportunity?
I mean, I've noticed for myself, like I've talked to friends about it, where even when I get good news, I'm like, the period where I actually enjoy it before like the worry comes in, or like the, oh my God, I'm going to get fired or whatever it is like sometimes like, within like 2 minutes, like 1 minute I'll be excited and the next minute I'll be like, oh my God, why did they pick me? Like I'm so in over my head. So I think now I've just made such a conscious effort, even if it doesn't always work, like just kind of faking it for myself, where I like, if something good happens, or even like a tiny thing where it's like, oh my gosh, this person I really respect said something nice to me after a show, like just forcing myself to like sit with it for a second and be like, that's really nice. Like that is like a moment that you should celebrate that it happened, or, you had this cool moment of connection with a barista or whatever it is. Like it feels like it's so easy for me to focus on the big bad things or the things I didn't get. And I like forget that there are all these like tiny nice things happening all the time, and really like forcing myself to acknowledge them and like appreciate that they happened.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's such a good reminder.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions you have, Kels?
I don't think so. How about you, Del?
You've answered all of mine. Is there anything else that you would want somebody to know who's tuning in, who is kind of going through a low period, whether it's personally, professionally, things just aren't feeling like they're working out the way that they want? Is there anything that you'd like to say to that person?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, like just being nicer to yourself. I think it's so easy to compound like being in a low place, but then being harder on yourself for like not figuring it out or not snapping out of it. And I just think like, at least if you can meet yourself in a place where a friend would, where they just like are coming to you with a sense of like, this is hard and I know this sucks right now, like just also being able to meet yourself there a little bit, I think it can just give you a little bit of space that can feel really important in those times.
Yes. Love it.
That's great. Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Gosh, thank you for having me.
Huge, speaking of things to like celebrate for yourself, huge congratulations on your book. It's really, really amazing.
Yes. And where can people find you, your book, all that good stuff?
Okay, so my website is aparnacomedy.com, and that sort of links to tour dates, book info, social media. So that feels like a good place to start.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, it was great talking to you. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, what a fun conversation. Fun, deep, all the things. Like I especially enjoyed just asking her questions from somebody who like left stand up and her weird kind of like love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's such a sweetheart. That was just fun to talk to her, and my God, she has accomplished so much. Her credits are bananas. So
it's very cool that she found like a way to integrate that in a way that makes sense for her, like what she wants her lifestyle to be. That's very inspiring.
Yeah. So remember, go pick up her book, Unreliable Narrator. It is out tomorrow, September 19th.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a segment, Del?
I do. I had to have a good shit. So it's my favorite time of the year, Fishmas, which is my made up family holiday.
Fishmas.
Yes. So I celebrate it with my dad and my stepmom and my siblings. But we birthed it during the pandemic. We were all just like, it was summertime. It was sad and uncertain and all this stuff. And we're like, let's just fucking throw a Christmas party. And so we got out decorations and we did a Secret Santa, like all this stuff. And we have just kept that tradition for the last, 3+ years now.
Wow.
3 years probably, maybe even longer. When was it? 2020 was the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, and I love it. we listen to Christmas music. We eat sub sandwiches. We have chai tea lattes. We dress up like somebody in our family. So
that's right.
We've dressed up as my dad and my brother. This year is one of my sisters. We exchange a secret Santa gift with each other that has some really ridiculous rule. Like you have to get something that the person like wouldn't probably like opposite of their personality.
Oh, yeah.
Just like really silly, dumb things. And we come up with new rules and like traditions every single year. And I fucking love it. But we celebrate on August 25th every year.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just so fun and silly, and everybody like brings a lot of just creativity to it. We play a lot of board games. There's some day drinking involved. I mean, it's just a good time, and it's just it's like reminds me like you can make your own traditions. Like you can make your own family traditions. Absolutely. You can do whatever the fuck you want, you know?
Yeah.
So Merry Fishmas to everybody.
Merry Fishmas, one and all.
By the time this airs, we will have celebrated it last month. So
yeah,
there you go.
I think it's so great. You guys have such a special family.
Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. That's really sweet.
Yeah, you guys are the best people. I feel very lucky to have spent time around you guys as a family.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, yeah, we spent Christmas together.
Yeah.
That was so nice.
And then summers at, the 2020.
Summers at the pool.
At the pool. Yeah. Your family is the type of family that really makes you feel immediately a part of them. And that's such a nice thing.
Oh, I will let them know. They will really appreciate that.
They're wonderful.
That's so sweet. Oh. We also bring out a Festivus pole, if anybody's wondering.
Fuck yeah.
Throwback to, not at Seinfeld.
Uh-huh. Anyway. Yes.
What do you got going on?
I also have a good shit. So I saw our Lord and Savior, Beyonce Christ, saw her in concert with one of my best friends, Jamie, and it was so good, you guys. It was so good. I cried as soon as she came on stage.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's just so emotional because, well, first of all, I think I mentioned before the concert on a recent episode that people have been treating this tour, especially like it's their adult prom. There was a lot of artwork that came with her album, The Renaissance, a lot of really amazing outfits she wore. And so people took the themes of that and people were wearing outfits that they kind of made themselves. And, Jamie and I got dressed up for it. And there's something so special. My God. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's just crazy to me that one human can have so much influence for good. Like that stadium was full of so much love and so much just adoration of her. And when she came out and, she started singing, and then there was a moment where she just like stopped and was looking out at the crowd and we're all screaming. And I just felt so emotional because it's like, oh my God, we are in the same room as this person who has created so much music that is, I feel like her music is so empowering. It's very empowering, at least for me. And just makes me feel so good, makes me feel like the most badass version of myself when I listen to it. I feel like she really taps into those parts of you. And so, I was crying then. And then this whole tour has been bringing her daughter, Blue Ivy, out on stage with her. So hers and Jay-Z's daughter. And she's dancing in the tour for like a chunk of the tour. And people go fucking crazy. And she's so cute. She must be maybe 12 or 13 at this point. And so at the end of her dancing, she waves at the crowd and we're all going crazy and screaming for Blue Ivy. And then this big screen on the stage is like showing Beyonce's face looking at Blue Ivy. And I just was like, just like instant tears. Because, obviously all this stuff with my mom. It just, to see Beyonce, oh my God, it was like a parent couldn't look more proud of their child. And it's like, what a special thing that they get to experience as a mother and daughter, that Beyonce gets to share her crowds with her daughter, and that we all just immediately love her daughter so much. And Oh my God. It was really special. There were so many very special moments, and just the concert itself was incredible. Was just dancing my ass off, had the best time. It was amazing. I wish I could just live that night over and over again.
Oh, I'm so glad you had a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have, since I've met you, you've always fucking loved Beyonce. Since day one, I've met you.
She is.
You've
I'm not
seen her
religious.
several times, right?
That was my 5th time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen an artist that many times live. No.
Yeah.
The most I've ever seen was Tenacious D, and I've seen them 3 times.
Hold on, maybe it was my 4th. Hold on, let me think. Let me count. I saw her as Destiny's Child when I was in high school.
Okay.
And then
I'll allow it.
And then Beyonce and Jay-Z together in Seattle. And then it was my 4th time. I'm sorry, I misspoke. My 4th time. But yeah, I've seen her a lot.
Nice.
I'm not a religious person, but she is. I treat her music like she's like it's my church. Yeah, that is the people go to church to like hear music and feel inspired and feel strong and restored, and that's what her music does for me. So
yes, I love it. And I just didn't she have an album called Lemonade?
Lemonade, yes.
And we haven't announced this yet, but we are officially with the Lemonada Network. So
yes!
This is our podcast Beyonce moment.
Yes, yes.
Lemonade, Lemonada, baby. We haven't talked about it on the show, but we are so excited to be part of this network that with so many incredible, talk about powerful like women and powerful people and inspiring things. But just all the programming they have is just like life-changing stuff, like the shows. I mean, like Kelsey and I are so grateful to be here in this like iteration of our podcast career. So
yeah, I mean the Lemonada Network, we're talking like Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast, Samantha Bee's podcast, Elise Myers, like we're such incredible women. And yeah, if you guys haven't checked out their other podcasts, you should. We are in some seriously amazing company. So yeah, we couldn't be more excited. But so that was my good shit. And then Chad and I are seeing Incubus in concert tomorrow. This is like my concert week.
Oh wow!
And one of my other very favorite bands. I'm sure that will be my next good shit segment, is talking about how that concert went.
Love it.
Yeah.
And we do have an iTunes review of the episode.
Yeah.
This is from Chell Rosswill. It says, I love you guys. I'm a fan of all 3 of you. I'm a female comedian, artist, and entrepreneur. Awesome.
Aww.
You guys are awesome, honest, and helpful. Feels like listening to a conversation of 3 of my besties. Also going to make sure I floss. Like a boss. So thanks for the tips, Kelsey. Did you talk about flossing on the podcast?
I did. I was talking about how when I go to the dentist, I get these really good tips. Like, I think the last time I went, I got the tip of don't use the glide floss because it's too slippy. Like, it doesn't grip onto the things that need to grip onto. And then also you should slowly work it in so it doesn't like pop up into your gums because it's damaging.
Yes.
I've got good flossing tips.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's so funny. My dentist just said to try to do the double thick floss.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot going on in that world.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Chell.
Yeah, thank you so much for that iTunes review. And I'm glad that the flossing tips have helped.
That's fabulous. Yeah, if you want to leave an iTunes review, feel free to do it. It'll probably get read on the show. I mean, really. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, guys. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you're having an awesome week so far, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. Love you. Bye.
All right, love you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Self-Helpless podcast. You can find our Patreon community, merch, and our individual work at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you shared this episode with a friend, or feel free to post it on Instagram and tag at Self-Helpless Podcast so we can repost you and say thank you.